Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. We start by praising Allah, bestowing peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Indeed, my dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, all of those who are watching, brothers and sisters in humanity, I would like to now address the topic, and with my dear brother over here. How you doing there, brother?
Alhamdulillah.
Okay? Assalamu alaikum. We'd like to address the topic actually today of the sort of like a history lesson in how Muslims came to Britain. And obviously we're talking about the role of the Masjid in the West, okay?
Indeed.
So something that a lot of people don't know about, that there was actually a Masjid established in 1762 in Britain.
Wow.
So, you know, it was actually in Kew Gardens, in West London.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was built by somebody sharing my name.
Really?
Sir Chambers.
Wow, mashallah.
So William Chambers in 1762, he built this structure which is very, very sort of Ottoman-esque in its style. And that was in Kew Gardens. So I guess that must have been the first masjid that was established here in the British Isles. There are all sorts of, early stories of how also that Muslims used to come to the Cornish coast, okay? And they used to grab hold of white people. British, white people, and put them, steal them off the coast and take them to Maghreb. This is like in the sort of in the 14th, 15th century. This used to happen. So there's all sorts of indications that Muslims were coming to Britain and interacting with people, not in the best of ways. Sometimes just stealing people for slavery. And there are people that were, imprisoned in Morocco, writing back to the UK saying, I've been imprisoned and I'm being looked after okay, but, I need to be freed. Role reversal.
So even as prisoners, the Muslims were still taking care of them, subhanAllah.
They were, yeah, alhamdulillah.
Not that excuses the kidnapping, but...
Absolutely. Well, there's a book called, I believe it's called The Golden Shore, which also indicates that the Muslims in the 15th century, they put the standard of Islam on the Isle of Lundy, which is just off the coast of Cornwall there.
Right.
So Islam actually came that far early back in those days,
yeah.
subhanAllah.
And we think it was only here in the last 50 years.
Yeah, we think that is the case. Now, where are we today?
We're in Cardiff, South Wales.
South Wales.
South Wales.
Right. So we need to discuss, part of the history lesson is that it happened right on these shores.
Yeah. So one of the oldest masajid, if not the oldest in the UK, well, apart from the one that assuming your ancestors built, is actually based here in Cardiff. It was built in 1860. Towards the docks area of Cardiff, and believe it or not, it's still an active masjid today. It was created. It was built by the Yemeni population that were coming in.
Is it purpose built or?
Yeah, if you look at it today, it actually looks like a proper masjid with the minaret and the dome and everything like that. It's not
Ottoman style.
It's very Ottoman style masjid.
Umayyad, as the
yeah. So it's very much in that style, whereas, of course, we're in probably the newest masjid in Cardiff now. Well, not necessarily the newest, but the newly refurbished Darul Isra. Previously, this masjid was about 1/3 of the size, but 2 years ago, alhamdulillah, the community raised enough money as well as grants from various locations, from various sources to rebuild the masjid and, mashallah, easily triple the size of it. So this is now the newest masjid here. But if you look at it from the front, it looks very much like any other building.
That's right, yeah. So it's a little bit more appropriate, perhaps, for giving the message of Islam to the people that don't know. Okay,
Indeed.
so so we have Cardiff, Yemeni population, 1860. That's fantastic, and they're mostly people who are coming in from the ships, working on the docks. Cheap labor, probably from Yemen. Building the Victorian state, right? Isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
So, okay, and this would have been quite a rich pickings for the people of the empire, right?
Indeed. Actually, slight story as well. I also believe that Queen Victoria as well, she used to have a manservant who was also a Muslim.
Yeah.
And we won't go into the story there, but
you don't want to go into that story quite,
No.
There's a film about it anyway. They can go and watch that, You know that one?
No, I don't know about that one.
There's a Hollywood film about it.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember what it's called, but I didn't really watch it.
Recent production?
Huh?
Recent production?
Yeah, fairly recent, within the last 5 years or so.
Oh, okay. We'll have to check that out.
Dame Judi Dench is one of the main actresses there.
Ah, okay.
So we've got Queen Victoria. We can even go further back to the King of Mercia, the name always defeats me on this one. But King of Mercia that minted, Arabic coins, dinars, with La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah written on them. So there's indication that Allah knows best whether he was a Muslim or not, but he definitely had interaction with the Muslims.
And these were used as currency in the UK?
Ago.
And these were used as currency within the UK?
According to some historians, yes.
Wow, mashallah.
Because otherwise, why would he have printed them? Why would he have minted them? So I think England has quite a history of,
Islamic influence.
Islamic influences, yes. SubhanAllah. You've got to remember that if people are very successful, and they were from the time of like 711 to 1492, when the Muslims took over Spain and ran Spain successfully as a minority a lot of the time, you've got to remember that they must have had massive influence culturally, educationally. Arabic was spoken by many people in Northern Europe, because they needed that cultural exchange, that education. They didn't have anything.
But it became the standard language, actually, whereas we would imagine most of the world now speaks English. At that time, everyone was speaking Arabic. That was the natural conversation, because Arabic is such a rich language that when we're talking about things like sciences and progression of mankind is being excelled in this format, you need to have a technically rich language to start conversing these ideas in. So all the scholars started to speak Arabic. It's a shame that a lot of this has been expunged from the history books, though. There's just a big void there now.
It is part of the British history, but it's not something that's ever discussed or ever put in the syllabus. And part of the reason that is because Muslims are just not pushing for it enough. In fact, if you go to Canada, you'll find that some of the Islamic history is in the textbooks now in the schools, because they push for it.
Okay. Well, when I was in school, I was just taught, the UK, we had this thing called the Dark Ages. We were completely, well, when I say we, the people of the UK, alhamdulillah, my ancestry, we came to the UK. But the people of the UK, they lived in the Dark Ages, and then poof, all of a sudden, something happened, and then wow, all these wonderful things just magically appeared, and society.
The Enlightenment period.
Exactly.
Which is when they did away with Allah, subhanallah.
Yeah. But, I mean, from when I was taught, there was absolutely no reference made of, actually, this is where everything came from. It was just almost like, woof, a renaissance happened, and we just magically got all this knowledge somehow.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. So we have a very, very rich vein of historical information, a body of information which is growing day by day, and it's going to continue to grow until it will start to influence a lot of people in these countries, no doubt, in the West, inshallah. But so the first message, so we've gone from Cardiff. Do you know which one's the next?
I'm going to say the one built by Killiam.
Well, yes, but it sort of shares the birth of another masjid, which is in Woking, which is, by the way, where I was born.
Really? Wow.
Yes, I was born in Woking all those years ago. 1964, subhanallah. But a long time before that, unbeknown to most of the people, another purpose-built masjid was established, very similar to the one which was built in Ottoman-esque, or very, very much built, actually based upon the Taj Mahal. A very small version, a very small place, built in Woking in Surrey in 1889.
Wow.
Right.
Mashallah.
So a lot of the people that were returning from India, the Raj, in the days of the Raj and the conquest and the East India Company and the domination of the developing world by these colonial powers. They're returning, they're coming back. Many of them de facto accepted Islam. So these lords and ladies, etc., they established this masjid in Woking, subhanallah, in 1889 in Victorian Britain.
So we have the noble dignitaries of Britain who are Muslim.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
Yeah, there are many lords and ladies that accepted Islam, and this is where they went and congregated and did their prayers and so on and so forth, and met up with each other and discussed their newfound faith, coming back to Britain.
Makes you wonder what happened then.
Yeah, it does make you wonder what happened, and again, a lot of this history is being unearthed as we speak. It's not like we know everything, but there are certain individuals that if you follow their life and and you read some of their writings, you'll find that they were extremely colourful chaps and people, and we need to unearth a lot more.
Definitely. We need to be aware of our own history, because if we don't know who we are, where we came from, how can we possibly know where we're going?
Exactly. That's why I like to tell this history, so that the Muslims can have a yardstick as to how far they have moved forward.
Well, actually, if I understand what you're saying correctly, given where we were in history, we're not actually moving forward as we like to think we're doing. No. With the establishment of these masajid, we're actually going backwards. If we really think about it.
We are,
which is a very concerning thought.
Yes, it is. Well, the next thing I'd like to talk about, because of course there was a relationship between this masjid and the masjid that was established in Liverpool,
right?
In Bourton Terrace in Liverpool in 1889, the same year as the purpose-built masjid was established in Woking.
Yep.
Now, however, the difference between that one and the one in Woking and the one in Liverpool was like thousands of miles apart, Not geographically between Woking and Liverpool, but in terms of the model.
Okay.
So what we see in the Woking masjid is the people are returning from India, and they've just taken a piece of Indian or Orientalist, architecture and the faith, and bought a piece of it back because they would have thought it was rather quaint and nice, and planted it there near London, right? But the difference between that one and the one in Liverpool was that a man called Henry William Quilliam, who was the most successful lawyer in the northwest of England at that time, had a very successful law company. And Liverpool at the time had 10 miles of docks.
Wow.
Continuously 10 miles of docks, and it was known to be number 2 city in the whole of the British colonies. All of the British colonies. It was number 2.
That's amazing.
So, some say, there are some different reasons, but Abdullah, or should I say Henry William Quilliam, apparently he got exhausted and from his work, and he wanted to take a sabbatical. He wanted to get some time off, so he travelled to Morocco.
Right.
Like you do, right?
Yeah.
But not then. Back in those days, it would have been in the 1880s.
Yep.
That you travel, and it would have been a really long, arduous trip, and it would have been a really amazing thing to do. And Islam would have been very, very strong in Morocco then, still.
Yep.
So there he travels. He meets all these different Muslims. He accepts the fundamentals of the faith. He comes back after taking Shahada, and he settles again in Liverpool. So the first thing he does in 1889 is to establish a mosque, because he knows this is what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has done.
Yep.
You know, he knows that Islam is correct. He's established it, and now the first thing he does is to open the house of Allah.
MashaAllah.
Now, but the difference was between the Woking effort and quite possibly the Yemeni effort here in Cardiff, okay, was this incredible engagement with the local population.
Oh. How was that?
Well, Henry William adopted the name Abdullah, yeah?
Okay.
And Quilliam is often a name, by the way, which is associated with some sort of negativity. Okay, but this is not, yes.
Yeah, so
but it's not the same. In fact, the family are not very happy that that name is being used by the other Quilliam,
right.
You know, which we'd explain later on.
So, I think just to clarify for our viewers, so there was a body that was set up who adopted the name Quilliam, that engaged in various practices that I think the majority of the Muslims within the UK would have disassociated themselves from.
So, in the second part of the show, we will talk at length about Abdullah Henry William Quilliam, and this will help us to define the model of a model masjid that was formed here by a British white convert like myself, and will help us to decide whether or not we should adopt this model or that model. Okay, and this is the real coup de grace. This is the moment of realization, really. So my brothers and sisters in Islam, make sure that you don't go very far from your television screen, because we're going to be back very shortly, inshallah. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to this show. And we've been talking about, of course, the history of the masjid in the UK or in Western Europe, subhanallah. So, very interesting today, right?
This has got to be where we're getting down to the nitty-gritty now. How does this really affect us here as Muslims in the West?
Yeah, but it is very interesting to know that, of course, I'm not trying to say, therefore, Henry William, of course, he was a white, indigenous British person. He was very academic. He was extremely educated. He was very sophisticated. He was very cultured,
Yep.
So this is the man. He comes back anyway to Liverpool, number 2 city in the empire, and he establishes this place. So when does he establish this place? Do you know?
I'd like to think that as soon as he got back, he did it straight away.
Yeah. After some severe struggles and people not wanting him to do that, because you can imagine the time 1889, it would have been a period when if you were anything but a Christian, okay, it was total blasphemy. It was an absolute no-no. People could not live as anything else but a Christian. You were either nominally or actually a practicing Christian. Okay. This man comes back from Morocco. He declares his faith openly. He's not afraid at all.
MashaAllah.
And because of his influence and his job being a solicitor, an extremely successful solicitor, he's got some sort of protection. If you like that, his profession was like the Prophet Muhammad Muhammad's uncle, supporting him, in that sense. So, alhamdulillah, on Christmas Day in 1889, this man, Abdullah, opens the masjid in Liverpool. On Christmas Day. Who would have thought it?
Was that coincidence, or did he plan for that?
It was planned.
It was, wow.
It was very planned. It was very much planned, because what he wanted to do was to demonstrate Islam. So how is he going to do it? On Christmas Day, massive expectations of something incredible that's going to happen. A lot of kids are waiting to be given their gifts, to be fed, so on and so forth. So he opens the doors of the masjid, and it was reported that he fed 1,000 poor, destitute children on that day.
SubhanAllah. It's amazing.
Well, where did he get this from? Did he pull it out of the sky?
Well, this is the established practice of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the giving of charity.
Indeed. So, effectively, this is his opening. His Fatiha is to open up the masses to the possibilities in Liverpool that Islam was a benign faith and it was their faith. Okay? So, not only he's not content with just doing that, opening the masjid, he opens a separate building because he sees these destitute children all around him. And indeed, how do we classify an orphan in Islam?
Well, it's if the child's father has passed away and the child is still below the age of puberty.
Well, it could be one of the parents or two of the parents. Okay,
definitely.
So if there's an illegitimate child, this is also an orphan. The father has gone or the mother has gone. Mostly it's the father that's gone because there was massive problems of illegitimate children. And children born outside wedlock at that time, it was a crime and it would have been punishable. So men are having children and running off and then leaving them to the hands of the streets, basically. So what did he do? He opened up the Medina House Orphanage in Liverpool in 1889. What an amazing thing to do. Because he read the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So Abdullah Quilliam, of course, was not content with just supporting one orphan or two orphans, but he wanted to support hundreds of orphans.
MashaAllah.
Now you've got to put this in context.
I mean, I'm sure these days we have equal capacity. I mean, there are many people that are needy and things like that, but we need to follow these examples. I mean, these are the type of the great people we aspire to be like, and we have the means. We definitely have the means. The question comes down to, do we have the desire? Do we really want it? Or, as we discuss further, is it just something that we're saying and there's no real motivation behind it? So, mashallah, it's very refreshing to see,
Well, I think that this man had taken the Shahada, so he'd made the declaration of faith, but he knew that the declaration of faith is not something which can remain on the tongue. If it doesn't manifest itself in the actions of the limbs, in the statements of the tongue, so on and so forth, becoming the actions, the amal or salihat, the righteous deeds, then what is the point of making the declaration of faith?
Exactly.
Something that we as reverts go through a lot. I mean, really get very frustrated here in the West. Seeing the incongruity between the statements and the actions, you see? You okay?
No, I agree with that. I was actually, I was agreeing with that. I was actually thinking that, again, this is also something very fundamental in Islam as well. The twins of faith, that you have the statements, but you have to follow it through as well with the actions. That being a Muslim, it's not just you say something and then you're a Muslim. You're a Muslim by your actions. You can't just say, I want to be part of this club. No, to be a Muslim means you have to follow these principles. You have to perform these actions. If you don't do these things, you're not a Muslim. Unlike the other faiths where you can just say, I'll be part of your club and that's it. You don't have to do anything. No, to be a Muslim, you have to be doing these actions as well. Otherwise, sorry.
Of course, we can't declare anyone a non-Muslim because
no, of course not.
I understand. In actual fact, if you want to be a Muslim, you have to enact Islam. Bring Islam into reality.
For example,
and this is what this man was doing.
Exactly. I mean, for example, just going straight to the pillars. If you're not praying, are you really a Muslim? Are you really one who submits? If you're not submitting to Allah, you must be submitting to someone else.
Well, for that moment, of course, for that moment where you've missed the Salah, you've apostated. Basically, you have actually left the fold of Islam whilst the Salah is not being conducted, and it's absolutely wajib. It's not like you're doing it out of ignorance, you're doing it out of choice. Right? SubhanAllah. So, this man, he takes every piece of advice from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he enacts within the confines of this house of Allah, the most incredible one, after Cardiff and then Woking, put them aside. This is the one that we need to take information from, we need to take stock of, we need to study it in depth about how he did it. Of course, the real one that we should take stock from is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's model, but this is one in the West so that we can see it's been done before. It's not like it's the first time. We know that in those times, if they could do it, if he could do it, we can definitely do it today. And we can be 20, 30, 500, 1,000 times more successful, right?
And bearing in mind, he was one man alone in a hostile environment, whereas these days Islam is generally accepted, the Muslims are here, and there are many of us. So there's no excuse. Every single excuse has been evaporated. There should be no excuse.
That's fantastic, my brother. So, you know, and the list of things that he has done, this man, Abdullah Quilliam, is, you know, I mean, you can make a whole series on just this man, but for the time that we have available to us, we've unfortunately run out of time today, but we'll continue in the next episode when we'll be talking again about the continuation of the history of the Masjid here in the West. And subhanAllah, it's my brothers and sisters, I'm so happy that you've been able to share this time with us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you so immensely for the time you're spending watching this program. I hope it benefits you. It certainly benefits me, because the person who actually gives the nasiha, he is also benefiting if he's saying it with sincerity, and I hope I'm saying it with sincerity. Jazakallahu khairan, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.